Ash hung like a shroud over the ruins of Mercy Flats. At the splintered gate, Eliza Mayhew swayed in the twilight wind, rope biting into her blood-crusted wrists. 18 years old, dressed in tattered calico, her breath came in shallow rasps. A sign nailed above her, Indian Land, creaked in the silence. Beyond the scorched timber, a lone figure watched, a Comanche warrior, eyes dark as obsidian, his hand frozen on his knife. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches your heart, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've got something extra special saved just for you. The wind carried the stench of burnt wood and death. Eliza's vision blurred. Cabin ashes, trampled cornfields, the distant howl of coyotes. She remembered the raid. War cries at dawn, her father's flintlock flashing, her mother's scream cut short. Then darkness. Now, every heartbeat throbbed in her torn shoulder. Her lips cracked, whispering a prayer to a god who'd forsaken her. Nisi stood motionless in the pines. Leave her, his tribe had ordered. Let the settlers see. His fingers brushed a bird bone pendant at his throat, a gift from his mother, long gone. It marked him as Pahiwi, a dreamer, an outcast. The warriors had spat at his feet when he refused to torch the church. Now this girl, pale as moonrise, hung like butchered game. Hoofbeats shattered the quiet. Two Comanche riders emerged from the smoke, faces streaked with ochre. Satu, one barked. Leave her. Nisi didn't turn. The other rider raised his bow. Arrow knocked. She is tied with filth. Let the crows feast. Silence stretched. A magpie cried. Nisi met their glares, his hand still on his knife. The riders spat, wheeled their ponies, and vanished into the ashen gloom. He moved toward the gate. Eliza flinched as his shadow fell over her. She thrashed weakly, rope fibers tearing her skin. "You don't touch me," she choked. He drew his blade. Cold steel grazed her wrist. She screamed, a raw, broken sound as the rope snapped. She collapsed into his arms, weightless as dry grass. His buckskin tunic smelled of sage and wood smoke. "Murderer," she whispered, eyes wide with terror. He cradled her against his chest, ignoring her feeble fists pounding his ribs. Her body trembled, all bird bone fragility. Blood seeped through her dress where the rope had bitten deep. He strode past the ruins, past the blackened husk of the schoolhouse, past the well where a child's doll floated face down. Forest swallowed them. Pine needles cushioned his moccasins. Creek water glinted ahead. Eliza drifted in and out. Flash of a tomahawk. Her brother's blue eyes, wide and still. The sign, Indian Land, nailed by laughing men with sun-bronzed skin. She whimpered. Nisi felt her shiver. His own ghost whispered. His mother's voice singing to corn, his chieftain scorn when he'd spared a settler boy. Soft they called him, a wolf who whimpers. He'd walked away that winter, trading his place at the fire for solitude. The pendant warmed against his skin, a brittle, hollow thing, like his spirit. He climbed a shale ridge, Eliza limp in his arms. Behind a curtain of wild grapevines, a cave opened, a shallow scoop of sandstone, hidden and dry. He laid her on a bed of elk hides, the fur thick and gray. Firelight would be seen. He lit no flame. Instead, he uncorked his waterskin, trickling liquid onto her lips. She gulped, coughing. "Why, you're one of them," she rasped, scooting backward. Stone scraped her spine. He said nothing. From his pouch, he drew crushed yarrow leaves, pressing them to her wrist. She recoiled. "Get away!" Her voice echoed in cavern, sharp as flint. He held up his hands. Empty. In the gloom, his eyes held no anger, only a weariness deeper than the river canyons. She stared at the pendant dangling from his neck. A bird's wing, carved delicate as lace. "Why?" The question hung between them, unspoken. He reached for a strip of clean deer hide, gesturing to her wounds. Eliza's breath hitched. Memories surged. her mother stitching a quilt humming, the arrow that pierced her throat. She hugged her knees, rocking. They killed everyone. Nisi froze. Her grief was a living thing, thick in the air. He touched the pendant again, remembering his mother's hands, teaching him to carve, long before the soldiers came for her. He dipped the deer hide in water, offering it. Silence. Wind moaned through the vines. He cleaned her wounds with ritual slowness. Yarrow stung. Eliza bit her lip till copper bloomed on her tongue. She studied him, the scar bisecting his eyebrow, the careful way his fingers avoided her skin. Not like the others. His braids were unadorned, unlike the warriors who'd strung her up. When he rinsed her wrist, his touch was colder than the creek. Night deepened. Stars pricked the cave mouth. He gave her pemmican, a bitter mix of dried bison and berries. She devoured it, shame warring with hunger. Name, he said suddenly, the first word he'd spoken, low and rough as grinding stones. She startled. Eliza. He nodded, as if filing away. Then he retreated to the cave's edge, wrapping himself in a thin blanket. His knife lay beside him, blade gleaming dully. Exhaustion pulled Eliza under. She dreamed of rope and fire, of her mother's voice. Run, Lizzie. She jolted awake, heart pounding. The cave was pitch black. Nisi's breathing was steady, rhythmic. He's asleep. Her legs screamed when she stood, but terror lent her strength. She inched toward the vine curtain, freedom just steps away. One hand parted the leaves. Moonlight flooded in. She took a step, then another. A twig snapped. She froze. Behind her, Nisi stood silhouetted against the dark, his knife in hand. His face was shadow unreadable. Moonlight caught the bird-bone pendant, turning it to ivory. Eliza's pulse thundered in her ears. She backed against the cave wall, stones digging into her flesh. He'll kill me now, for running. He didn't move, didn't raise the blade. His gaze pinned her, not with fury, but something raw and fathomless. Slowly he sheathed the knife. You stayed? She whispered, the words frayed at the edges. He took a step closer. His hand rose, not toward her, but to the pendant. He cradled it like something wounded. When he spoke, his voice was a rasp of broken timber. Nerua. The word hung in the air, a fragile, trembling thing. Eliza stared. He opened his mouth again, and the cave held its breath. Erua. The word lingered between them, fragile as spider silk. Eliza pressed against the cave wall, stones scraping her spine. Nisi hadn't moved, his hand still cradling the bird-bone pendant. Moonlight carved shadows beneath his cheekbones. What does that mean? She whispered, voice raw. He touched his chest, then hers. Nerua. Alive. Silence pooled in the cavern. Wind sighed to the grapevine curtain, carrying the scent of frost and pine. Eliza's legs buckled. She slid to the elk hides, trembling. He didn't approach. Instead, he knelt by the cave mouth, drawing his knife to whittle a stick. Slow, deliberate strokes that filled the dark with rhythm. Dawn bled pale light through the vines. Eliza woke to throbbing wrists. The rope burns had festered overnight, swollen and hot. Pus seeped through the deer-hide bandages. She bit back a whimper, watching Nisi grind herbs with smooth river stone. His movements were economical, precise. When he offered a paste of crushed yarrow and bitterroot, she recoiled. No. He held her gaze, then smeared the salve on his own forearm. A scar, long-healed, whitened against the skin. Safe. Reluctantly, she extended her arm. His fingers were callous but gentle, applying the paste. It stung. She flinched. Why? She asked, the question hanging like smoke. Why not leave me? He didn't answer. His eyes flicked to her torn dress pocket. A glint of brass peeked through the fabric. Her father's railroad watch, cracked and still. She covered it protectively. 3 days passed. Frost crusted the cave entrance each morning. Tianisi brought water, pemmican, and once a rabbit skin quick as a breath. Eliza's strength returned in fits. She walked to the creek, leaning on sandstone, while he stood guard upstream. The water mirrored her hollow cheeks, the bruises fading to yellow ghosts. She touched the watch again, its hands frozen at 4:17. The moment the raid began, flash of memory, her mother pressing the watch into her palm. For luck, Lizzie. War whoops shredding dawn. Her brother Jacob's hand slipping from hers as warriors dragged him into smoke. A sob escaped her. Tianisi turned, his expression unreadable. He carved something small, a wooden badger, and set it near her sleeping furs. A child's toy. On the fourth day, fever struck. It came at twilight, swift and vicious. Eliza's skin burned. Her teeth chattered. Visions taunted her. The sign, Indian land, swinging above flames, her mother's corpse staring with clouded eyes. She thrashed, crying out. Cool hands pressed a wet cloth to her forehead. Tianisi murmured low, rhythmic words, a healing song. He peeled back her bandages. The wounds wept crimson and poison. Get away, she rasped, batting weakly. You want me dead, too. He gripped her shoulders, firm but not cruel. His eyes held hers, dark, urgent pools. Narrower, he insisted. Live. Outside, wind howled. He gathered his blanket, soaked it in creek water, and wrapped her shivering body. All night, he tended her, replacing cloths, spooning water between her cracked lips. Once, when she moaned for her mother, he hummed a tune, sad and resonant as canyon echoes. She slept fitfully, her fingers brushing the wooden badger. Morning came gray and brittle. The fever broke, leaving her drenched and weak. Tianisi slept slumped against the wall, exhaustion etching his face. Sunlight caught the pendant, the carved bird's wing, chipped at the tip, damaged like him. She studied him, the scar bisecting his brow, the quiet dignity in his stillness. He defied his tribe, risked everything. Why? When he woke, she pointed to the pendant. Your mother? A muscle twitched in his jaw. He touched it, then mimed cradling a baby. Yes. His hand swept toward the plains, gone. Empathy knifed through her. She fumbled for the railroad watch. My family, too. Silence settled, thick with shared grief. He rose, offered pemmican. This time, she took it without hesitation. They fell into fragile routines. She gathered firewood while he hunted. He taught her to find edible roots beneath the snow. Words remained scarce, but glances held volumes. Once by the creek, he showed her deer tracks, 3 days old, heading south. She traced them, her fingertips brushing ice. Safe. He shook his head, scanning the tree line, always watching. Fear prickled her neck. His tribe? Settler posses? The pendant wasn't his only mark. She'd seen the fresh scars on his back, lash marks, perhaps from his people's wrath. On the 7th day, trust fractured. Eliza found a settler's button near the creek, brass, stamped with an eagle, cavalry issue. Her heart lurched. Survivors? Rescue? She pocketed it, hope warring with dread. That afternoon, Tianisi returned tense. He'd seen hoof prints on shod ponies. Comanche. He sketched a warning in the dirt. 3 riders circling north. They're close, she whispered. He nodded, sharp. As dust bled into indigo, he built their first fire. Small, hidden deep in the cave. Flames danced shadows on the walls. Eliza huddled close, the button burning in her pocket. Should she tell him? Would he betray her to his kin? He handed her a steaming cup of juniper tea. Their fingers brushed, brief, electric. She searched his face. You won't let them take me? He placed his palm over his heart. A vow. Relief flooded her. She pulled out the button. I found this. Maybe my people. Thwop. An arrow embedded itself in the cave wall, quivering inches from her head. Tianisi lunged, smothering the fire with dirt. Darkness swallowed them. Outside, A pony snorted. Twig snapped. Eliza froze, blood icing in her veins. Found. Tenisi pressed a knife into her hand, his spare blade bone-handled, cold. He pointed to the deepest shadows, then crept toward the vines. His silhouette merged with the night, a wraith with vengeance in his eyes. The button fell from her grasp, rolling into ash. Hoofbeats thundered closer. Hoofbeats drummed the earth like a panic heart. Eliza clutched the bone-handled knife, its edge cold against her palm. Shadows swallowed the cave. Only the arrows fletching gleamed, gray goose feathers trembling in the draft. Tennessee melted into the grapevine curtain, a specter in buckskin. Outside, a pony snorted. Leather creaked. Voices, low and guttural, carried on the wind. Comanche, his tribe. Flash of memory. Warriors laughing as they nailed the sign. Rope biting her wrists. She pressed deeper into the sandstone, breath held. Vines rustled. A warrior peered inside, his face streaked with ochre. Moonlight caught the scalps on his belt. Pale hair, settler blonde. Eliza's throat tightened. Jacob? The warrior scanned the darkness, his eyes passing over her twice. Then he grunted, withdrew. Hoofbeats faded northward. Silence. Tenisi reappeared, his hand raised. Wait. They waited an eternity, frost crystallizing on the cave floor. Finally, he gestured. We go. Now. They fled into the pines. Snow crunched underfoot, the air sharp with ice and resin. Tenisi moved like mist, pausing to erase their tracks with a pine bough. Eliza stumbled, her fever-weakened legs buckling. The rope burns on her wrist pulsed, raw beneath frayed deer-hide. He caught her elbow, steadying her. His touch was brief, impersonal, yet warmth bloomed where his fingers brushed. Why risk this? She whispered, the words ghosting in the cold. He touched the pendant at his throat. The bird's wing, chipped but unbroken. Same reason you kept the watch. His silence said. Dawn bled crimson over plains. They reached the Silver Thread River, swollen with meltwater. Currents snarled around jagged rocks, white as bare teeth. Tenisi scanned the banks, then pointed to a fallen cottonwood bridging the torrent. Cross there? Eliza's voice wavered. The trunk glistened with frost. He nodded, testing the wood. It held. Halfway across, her foot slipped. Ice seared her skin. The river roared below. She scrabbled, nails digging into rotten bark, and found his hand locked around her wrist. He hauled her up, her body crashing against his. For a heartbeat, they clung together, breaths mingling in the frigid air. His eyes held no reproach, only a fierce, unspoken resolve. Narrower, they sheltered in a gully choked with snow-bearer bushes. Tenisi kindled a tiny fire, shielded by rocks. Flames licked at the damp wood, painting his face in amber and shadow. Eliza unwrapped her father's watch. For 17, she traced the cracked glass. Memory. Jacob's laughter as he tried to wind it. Teach me, Lizzie. Their mother's smile, warm as bread fresh from the oven. Then the war cries, the smell of smoke and blood. Jacob's hand torn from hers. A tear splashed the brass. Tenisi watched her. Slowly, he drew the wooden badger from his pouch, the toy he'd carved. He placed it beside the watch. Your mother, she ventured, touching her own chest. Did she make your pendant? He stilled. Then he mimed carving, small, careful strokes. Yes. His hand shaped the air, a woman singing. Then a gunshot. His fingers splayed, falling like dead leaves. Gone. Epiphany ached in Eliza's chest. They were mirrors, shattered by the same war. She slid the badger toward him, a silent offering. He took it, his thumb brushing the rough wood. 2 days they trekked west, avoiding game trails. Tennessee taught her to read the land. Raven circling meant carcasses, danger. Owl pellets meant safe hollows, rest. He shared pemmican, insisting she eat the larger portion. At night, he took first watch, his back to the fire, knife across his knees. Eliza pretended to sleep, watching the pendant rise and fall with his breath. Guardian, outcast, friend. On the third morning, they found a massacre site. A settler wagon, overturned and charred. Bones picked clean by coyotes. A woman's calico dress fluttered from a thorn bush, bullet-riddled. Eliza gagged, while bitter on her tongue. Nisi's hand gripped her shoulder, pulling her back. His eyes scanned the ridgeline. Fresh tracks, shod horses. Cavalry. The brass button in her pocket turned leaden. Her people. Would they see Nisi as her savior or her captor? "We can't stay," she murmured. He nodded grimly. But as they turned, a glint caught Eliza's eye. A doll propped against a wagon wheel, its yarn hair singed, like the one in Mercy Flat's well. She reached for it. "Coo!" Nisi hissed. No, too late. A rifle cocked. Eliza froze. From behind the wagon, a figure emerged, a boy no older than Jacob had been, his face smudged with soot, eyes hollow with trauma. He leveled a battered flintlock, hands shaking. "You don't move." Nisi stepped in front of Eliza, shielding her. The boy's gaze darted to his braids, his pendant, fear twisted into rage. "Comanche!" He raised the rifle. Eliza lunged, grabbing the barrel. "He saved me." The boy stared, bewildered. "Why, you're white." "His name is Nisi. He cut me down." "He's what?" "Outcast. Healer. Protector." Words failed her. She released the rifle, showing her rope-scarred wrists. "Please." The boy wavered. His finger tightened on the trigger. Nisi didn't flinch, his gaze steady on the child. Slowly, he opened his empty hands. Then he touched the bird bone pendant, a universal gesture of peace. A tear tracked through the grime on the boy's cheek. He lowered the gun. "Pa and Ma, they're dead. The riders took my sister." Hoofbeats echoed in the distance, many this time. Cavalry or Comanche. The boy paled. "They're coming back." Nisi seized Eliza's hand. "Run." They fled into a box canyon, sheer walls rising like fortress ramparts. The boy, Jed, scrambled beside them, gasping. Behind, shouts mingled with the thunder of approaching horses. White men's voices. Scouts said Comanche. "Check that canyon." Nisi shoved Eliza and Jed behind a boulder. His knife gleamed, a sliver of defiance. Eliza gripped her own blade, her pulse a wild drum. Jed trembled, clutching the singed doll. "Give him the red devil," a voice roared. Nisi met Eliza's eyes. In them, she saw no fear, only a sorrow as deep as the plains. He pressed a wooden badger into her hand, then the bird bone pendant. Keep them safe. Boots crunched on gravel. Sunlight glinted on a cavalryman's brass button. Eliza's breath caught. Nisi tensed, ready to spring, and Jed stepped into the open. Jed stood silhouetted against the canyon's mouth, thin as a sapling in the wind. Cavalrymen reined in their horses, dust rising in ochre clouds. 6 men, uniforms faded by sun and grit, rifles leveled. Their sergeant, a thick-necked man with a saber scar across his cheek, spat tobacco. "Well now, what's this? A red devil herding strays?" Eliza stepped forward, shielding Jed. "He saved us." The sergeant's eyes narrowed at her rope-scarred wrists, then flicked to Nisi. "That Comanche's worth $50 dead." He raised a gloved hand, rifles cocked. Nisi didn't move. His knife lay abandoned in the dirt, a deliberate surrender. Jed clutched the singed doll, trembling. "He cut her down," the boy stammered. "At Mercy Flats." Mercy Flats. The sergeant stiffened. His gaze swept the massacre site, the wagon, the bones, the bullet-torn calico dress. "You from there, girl?" Eliza touched her father's watch. "For 17, my family's buried under ash." A younger soldier shifted, his atoms apple-bobbing. "Sarge, maybe?" "Quiet, Dobbs." The sergeant dismounted, spurs jingling. He stopped before Te-Nisi, eyeing the bird-bone pendant. Why'd you spare her? Silence. Te-Nisi's eyes held the sergeant's, steady, unflinching. He touched the pendant, then pointed to Jed's doll. For the children, the sergeant's jaw worked. Bind him. They marched west at gunpoint. Snow began to fall, thick flakes melting on rifle barrels. Te-Nisi's hands were lashed with rawhide. Eliza walked beside him, Jed's small hand in hers. The cavalry camped in a pine grove as twilight bruised the sky. Soldiers muttered, casting dark glances at Te-Nisi. Injun lover. Scalp my cousin at Cedar Creek. Eliza tended Jed by the fire. The boys shivered, staring into flames. My sister, Lottie, they took her, warriors with eagle feathers in their hair. Not Te-Nisi's unadorned braids, Eliza noted. She wrapped her blanket around him. We'll find her. Promise? Her fingers brushed a wooden badger in her pocket. Te-Nisi's carving, a silent vow. Promise. Across the fire, Te-Nisi sat bound to a pine trunk. Dobbs guarded him, his rifle slack. When Eliza approached with water, Dobbs flinched. Sergeant says no contact. She's just a girl, Dobbs, argued an older soldier, whittling a stick. Te-Nisi drank greedily, his eyes on Eliza. A raw abrasion circled his wrist where the rawhide chafed. She dabbed with snow, ignoring Dobbs' glare. The pendant swung between them, a carved bird mid-flight. Flash of memory. Te-Nisi's hands shaping the air, a woman singing, then gone. Soldiers had taken his mother too. Rest, she murmured. He closed his eyes, his breathing sinking with the wind. Midnight. The sergeant roused them, his face grim. Riders coming. Comanche by the hoofbeats. Panic spiked. Soldiers scrambled for rifles. Hoof thunder shook the ground. 20 horses, maybe more. Te-Nisi strained against his bonds, rawhide biting flesh. Blood welled dark. Eliza seized the sergeant's arm. Let him go. He knows this land. Unbind him, the sergeant ordered Dobbs. But if he runs, shoot him. The rawhide fell away. Te-Nisi lunged not toward freedom, but to Jed. He swept the boy onto his back, then grabbed Eliza's hand. Run. They plunged into a thicket of snow-laden pines. Behind them, war cries erupted. High, ululating shrieks that tore the night. Gunfire sparked. Lottie. Jed sobbed into Te-Nisi's shoulder. They wove through trees, icy branches whipping their faces. Te-Nisi stopped at a granite outcrop, shoving Eliza and Jed into a crevice. Stay. Then he vanished. Where's he going? Jed whimpered. To lead him away, Eliza whispered, clutching the badger carving. Protect her. Minutes crawled. Shouts and hoofbeats circled closer. Suddenly, Te-Nisi reappeared, breathless. He pressed a scrap of blue calico into Jed's hand, a child's pinafore, clean, recent. Jed's eyes widened. Lottie's. Te-Nisi pointed northeast, toward the mountains. There, at dawn, they found the sergeant. He lay against a blood-stained pine, his legs shattered by a tomahawk. The other soldiers were gone, fled, or dead. His pistol trembled as he aimed at Te-Nisi. Should have left you, trust. Eliza stepped between them. He saved your men's lives by drawing the war party west. The sergeant's gaze fixed on Te-Nisi's pendant. Recognition flickered. That carving, saw one like it years back. On a Comanche woman they brought to Fort Mercer. She carved birds, even for settler kids. His voice frayed. They hanged her for stealing horses. Te-Nisi went rigid. A low sound escaped him, a wounded animal's groan. He touched the pendant, then the sergeant's leg wound. Let me help. The pistol wavered. Why? Te-Nisi's fingers brushed the bird bone wings. For my mother. He tore a strip from his buckskin shirt, binding the sergeant's leg with brutal efficiency. They built a travois from pine boughs. Eliza and Te-Nisi hauled the sergeant while Jed scouted ahead. The boy stopped at a ridge, pointing. Smoke. A homestead nestled in the valley. A cabin, a corral, curls of gray chimney smoke. Hope, sweet and treacherous, swelled in Eliza's chest. The sergeant grunted. Hank Mueller's place. He's got a telegraph. As they descended, the cabin door creaked open. A man emerged, rifle raised. Hold there. We're settlers. Eliza called, pushing back her hood. This boy's sister was taken. Mueller's eyes locked on T.A. Nisi. Comanche! He fired. The shot went wide, splintering pine bark. T.A. Nisi dropped the travois, shoving Eliza and Jed behind a boulder. Mueller reloaded, his hands frantic. Stop. The sergeant's voice boomed. That man saved my life. Mueller hesitated, his rifle still aimed. He's one of them. They killed my... A war cry echoed from the ridge. T.A. Nisi whirled. 5 Comanche warriors watched from horseback, bows drawn. At their lead sat the ochre-streaked warrior from the cave, the one with scalps on his belt, his arrow pointed straight at T.A. Nisi's heart. The ochre-streaked warrior's bowstring quivered, arrowhead glinting in the pale dawn. 5 Comanche horses stamped steam into the frigid air, their riders' faces impassive as stone. Mueller's rifle swung wildly between T.A. Nisi and the war party. See? Savages, a lot. Hold your fire, Mueller, the sergeant bellowed from the travois, his voice raw with pain. That man just saved my hide. T.A. Nisi stepped forward, hands open. He touched the bird bone pendant at his throat, his mother's carving, then pointed to the warrior's belt of scalps. One lock, sun-bleached and fine, matched Jed's hair. The warrior's eyes narrowed. Eliza moved beside T.A. Nisi, heart hammering against her ribs. She raised her scarred wrists. He cut me down at Mercy Flats. He's no killer. Silence stretched, brittle as ice. The warrior's gaze flicked from Eliza's wounds to T.A. Nisi's pendant. Recognition dawned, a carver's mark, known among the people. He lowered his bow an inch. Tahoya, he called. Why? T.A. Nisi's hand swept toward Jed, clutching Lottie's pinafore, then to the sergeant's bloodied leg. Pia. Compassion. The warrior spat. He made a sharp, cutting gesture toward the ground. Exile. Then wheeled his pony, leading the war party back into the pines. Hoofbeats faded into the wind. Mueller lowered his rifle, trembling. They'll return. Not for him, the sergeant grunted, nodding at T.A. He's dead to them now. He met T.A. Nisi's eyes. Like my men are to me. Inside the cabin, Eliza tended the sergeant's wound while T.A. Nisi built up the fire. Mueller paced, muttering about red devils, but Jed's small voice cut through. He found Lottie's dress. We can save her. T.A. Nisi unfolded the blue calico scrap on the table. With a charred stick, he drew mountains, then a valley dotted with teepees. Northeast, a winter camp. The sergeant gripped Eliza's arm. Take my horse. Mueller's got a telegraph. I'll muster a patrol from Fort Mercer. And if they shoot him on sight? Eliza gestured at Nisi, who stood apart, watching the tree lean. Then you vouch for him. The sergeant pressed a brass button into her palm. Cavalry issue, stamped with an eagle. Show this. Tell them Sergeant Mackey owes him a life. Dusk bled into the cabin. Mueller boiled coffee, avoiding T.A. Nisi's gaze. Jed slept by the hearth, Lottie's pinafore clutched to his chest. Eliza sat with T.A. Nisi near the window, her father's watch heavy in her hand. For 17, the moment everything ended, memory, her mother winding the watch each Sunday. Time's a river, Lizzie. It flows even when we're broken. Eliza's thumb found the crown. She turned it once, twice. A soft click echoed in the quiet. The hand shuddered, then crept forward. For 18. T.A. Nisi watched, his eyes reflecting the firelight. He drew the wooden badger from his pouch, placing it beside the watch. Life moves. Your mother Eliza whispered, "Did she carve many birds?" He touched his pendant. Then, from his belt, he drew a fresh piece of pine. His knife flashed shaved curls smooth. Dawnlight found him holding a new carving, a sparrow in flight, wings spread wide. He offered it to Eliza. "Freedom," his silence said. "Hope." They left at first light. Mueller lent him a swayback mare and a mule, his distrust softened by Mackey's glare. "Find the girl," the sergeant ordered, propped in Mueller's rocker. "Then get to Fort Mercer. I'll clear your path." Snow fell as they rode northeast. Following Te-Nisi's memory of the map, Jed rode with Eliza, his small body tense. What if Lottie's gone? Te-Nisi reached back, touching the boy's knee. He pointed to the sparrow carving now tied to Eliza's wrist. "We bring her home." 3 days they climbed into the high country. Aspens gave way to pines, their branches heavy with snow. On the third noon, Te-Nisi halted. Below, in a sheltered valley, smoke curled from 30 teepees. A herd of painted ponies stamped near a frozen creek. Jed whimpered, "They'll scalp us." Te-Nisi dismounted, handing the reins to Eliza. "Wait here." He removed his knife, his bow, laying them in the snow. Then he walked into the camp, hands raised, the bird bone pendant visible at his throat. Eliza counted heartbeats. 100, 200. Voices rose, anger, then curiosity. A crowd gathered. Finally, Te-Nisi emerged, leading a girl by the hand. Lottie. She wore Comanche leggings and a beaded tunic, her braids threaded with blue jay feathers. But her eyes, wide cornflower blue, were Jed's. She broke free, sprinting through the snow. "Jetty!" They collided, tumbling into a drift, laughing and crying. Eliza slid from the horse, tears freezing on her cheeks. Te-Nisi watched, his face softened by something akin to peace. A Comanche woman approached, her eyes kind. She pressed a small bundle into Eliza's hands. A doll made of corn husks, its dress stitched from the same blue calico. "Narroa," she murmured. "Alive." They made camp in a pine grove upstream. Lottie chattered as Jed fed her pemmican. "They call me Tootsie, little bird." A warrior found me hiding in a root cellar. His wife had no children. Her voice trailed off as she touched her braids. They were kind. Te-Nisi poked the fire, sparks spiraling into violet twilight. Eliza sat beside him, the sparrow carving warm in her palm. "What now? Fort Mercer?" He studied her, really studied her, for the first time. Then he drew a line in the snow, west beyond the mountains. Free territory. No forts. No tribes. No hanging ropes. "We go together?" Eliza asked. His calloused hand covered hers. "A vow." Jed tugged Eliza's sleeve, pointing north. "Look." A lone bison stood on the ridge, silhouetted against the dying sun. Ancient, unbowed, it bellowed, a sound that shook the snow from pines, then vanished into the twilight. Te-Nisi rose. He lifted Lottie onto the mare, settled Jed behind her, then helped Eliza mount the mule. As stars pricked the sky, he took the lead rope. "West."